Good evening, y'all. What's going on? What's happening? So it's your girl Tiffany here, live in effect. Tonight we're going to get into the subject about Whitney M Young Jr. So I know many may have heard the name. Some of y'all may not have heard of them. All right. So there's schools, there's recreation centers, parks named after him or whatnot. So I want to get into the subject about him because I felt that it was very compelling since his name is pretty much all over the place. Like there's schools and recreation centers named after him, but nobody really knows who he is or what his whole purpose was. Like what did he do as far as like the African American community is concerned. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, make sure you share the channel. All right, shout out to the chat. Thank y'all for coming through. So let's go ahead and get started on this wonderful evening. Now I'm going to take you to a website. So this is the National Museum of African American History and Culture, right? So who is Whitney M Young Jr.? Now this is the photograph of him over here to the right. So he was born on July 31st, 1921 in Lincoln Ridge, Kentucky. All right. He spent his teenage years on the campus of Lincoln Institute, an all-black educational institution in Shelby County, Kentucky, where his father held the position of president. All right. And after completing high school, Young enrolled at Kentucky State College, a historically black college where he not only served as the president of his senior class, but also held the vice president position in the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Subsequently, he joined the military and earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Minnesota in 1947. So Young then relocated to Atlanta, where he assumed the role of dean at the School of Social Work at Atlanta University, serving from 1954 to 1961. Okay, so this is the photograph of the Alpha Phi Alpha. All right, so Young's ascent in leadership continued when a representative of the Rockefeller Foundation personally selected him to succeed the previous head of the organization. So in February 1961, he was elected as the executive director of the National Urban League. Prior to taking on this role, Young had already contributed to the work of the Urban League in Minnesota and Nebraska. In Omaha, Nebraska, he taught part-time at the University of Nebraska Graduate School of Social Work, and notably got a non-segregation clause added to the Omaha's public housing code. Additionally, he planned strategy with the Deportes Club, a forerunner of the Nebraska Congress for Racial Equality. The Deportes Club challenged various forms of racism and discrimination in Omaha. Or wait a minute, am I saying it wrong? It's what St. Martin, St. the Poors. Okay, it's the Poors. Excuse me. Okay, I don't know where I get the Poors from. So, anyways, when Young relocated to Atlanta, he became an officer in the local National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and an advisor to the student protesters who challenged Jim Crow segregation in the downtown store. Right. So, real quick, for those of you that don't know what the National Urban League is, so the National Urban League is it's kind of like how YMCA is and all of that, right? So, the purpose of the National Urban League is basically to focus on the inner city crisis, try to build programs to help those in the inner city community. Okay, so that's the purpose. But let me go ahead and continue with the subject. So, founded in 1910 and headquartered in New York City, the National Urban League was composed of recent Black migrants and boasting an interracial board. This organization played a vital role in aiding Black individuals, particularly Southern migrants, in their quest to secure housing and employment opportunities. Stemming from a century-old philosophy known as self-help or racial uplift, the National Urban League emerged during a time when social Darwinism gained traction, depicting racial and class disparity as inherent in the natural order. Racial uplift advocates counter this belief by championing the notion that race could evolve. Furthermore, they substitute culture for race as the key to gain admission to civil society. All right. So go further down. It says the goals of the Urban League have been molded by a succession of leaders. Director Eugene Kickle Jones and his successor Lester Granger both championed the cause of securing employment opportunities for Black people within the defense industry. Additionally, they worked to break down the barriers of segregation within the labor unions during World War II. Under 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 Young's leadership, the organization became more involved in the civil rights movement. Young played a prominent role in the civil rights movement, advocating for what he termed a domestic Marshall Plan, drawing parallels to the post-World War II European Economic Aid Initiative. Young also played a key role in organizing the historic March on Washington and served as an influential advisor to Presidents John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Richard M. Nixon. He is notably recognized as a co-author of Johnson's War on Poverty. So on June the 24th of 1968, Young Jr. delivered a landmark address to the American Institution of Architects. In his speech, he advocated for greater diversity within the architecture profession and urged architects to take steps in addressing pressing urban community issues. Historically, Black architects have consistently constituted a minority within the architectural profession. Discriminatory laws and policies often obstructed their access to educational institutions, licensing exams, and membership in professional organizations. Even after legal barriers to discrimination were dismantled, the field of architecture continues to be predominantly white. This lack of diversity played a significant role in decisions regarding to the placement of highways, often resulting in the displacement of Black communities. So I want to pause right there real quick. I wonder if you guys can type in the comment, how do you feel about the direction of what the president is doing with the whole DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion? How do you feel about the direction of things going right about now, as far as what Trump is doing with the DEI? So if you could type in the comment section, please let me know. What's your thoughts on it? How do you feel about the situation? Being that, do you think that it's taking away opportunities for African Americans, or do you think that it would help better African Americans in general? What's your whole thought on the situation about the DEI? So you can go ahead and just type it in the comment section, or you can just type it after I get done doing this video. But I just wanted y'all input on it. So, anyways, it says following Young's address, his words triggered the initiation of new funding programs that facilitate increasing enrollments of minority students in architecture and urban planning programs. So in 1971, a group of Black architects who met at the AIA National Convention in Detroit formed the National Organization of Minority Architects. Concurrently, architect J. Max Bond Jr. assumed the role of mentor to numerous students, significantly influenced their commitment to social justice and community-oriented endeavors. The racial change across the profession has seen only incremental progress. All right. So it says, despite observer often labeling Young as a moderate, Young believed that anyone working for the betterment of Black people could not be considered moderate. He asserted nobody who's working for Black people is a moderate. We're all militants in different ways. His co-sponsorship of the March on Washington generated controversy as the Urban League was primarily associated with social services rather than direct actions. Young even found himself in disagreement with Martin Luther King Jr. regarding the Vietnam War, although he later advocated for a shift withdrawal from the conflict after Johnson's departure from office. So Young passed away from drowning in Lagos, Nigeria, where he was attending a conference in 1971 at the age of 49 in recognition of his contribution. Officials sent by President Nixon retrieved his body, and 6,000 people, including Coretta Scott King, attended his funeral. All right, so this is him standing right next to Dr. King. Okay. Now it goes on to say Young addressed the AIA remains a memorable moment, shedding light on a crucial issue within the architecture field. Even today, over 50 years later, while there have been some advancement for Black architects, persistent challenges persist. According to the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, as of 2022, there are 121,603 licensed architects in the United States, but only a mere 2% of them are Black, with Black women comprising less than 1%, numbering just 566. Moreover, the path to becoming an architect is a demanding one that spans several years, with architectural schools experiencing notably low completion rates. For instance, the San Francisco Institute of Architecture reports that out of every 100 students who enroll, only 20 manage to graduate. That number is low. However, young Black architects are making significant strides by raising awareness about diversity issues within the field. They have even formed a group called Beyond in the Built Environment, dedicated to acknowledging the contribution of minority architects, thus providing young people with a chance to see themselves reflecting within the profession. And that's it for that information. So now let me pause for a minute and let me explain why I asked y'all a question about the diversity, equity, inclusion. So there has been a little conversation here and there about what's going on, right? Some people felt like, well, it doesn't matter to us about the DEI because it didn't benefit us Black people anyhow. Then there was those who said, well, it's hindering Black folks and it's causing us to have to start over again, and we have to seek opportunity elsewhere, or it's putting us in a major hindrance what the president is doing. So this is where the conversation becomes, well, after all these years fight for civil rights, fight for programs or putting up programs that's going to help African Americans, right, or any other minority group, did it come to an end? Was it all for nothing? Did our people work hard for diversity and just for it to be taken away from them? Just like what we see with people trying to say, okay, we're going to get rid of Black History Month. Well, our people worked so hard to put Black History Month on the map for a reason. So now, if we have a situation regarding to the DEI, what is the next solution for the Black community? What is the Black community going to do regarding to this issue that's going on? How is the Black community is going to come up with ways that it will bring some type of empowerment as far as like social empowerment, economic empowerment. Like, what can the Black community do at this point? Because it's almost like your hands is tied. And this is why I say we have to be careful who we vote for. We have to be careful who we vote for, because you never know, the person that you vote for may not really be in support of the things that you're supporting. And this is what I mean about us being infantilized as a people. We're taught to either be Democratic or Republican. So now you got to start asking yourself, after all these years of what our ancestors went through, putting up the fight for those who are underserved, was it basically, was they wasting their time, or was they doing it for nothing? I mean, what was, how do you see it now? So basically, it's almost like these people wasted their time. And I'm quite sure a lot of us did not expect for this to happen. But we can't get mad at Trump, because Trump is doing what he is designed to do. Trump and his administration are doing exactly what they are designed to do. That's what they're doing. But I mean, maybe things might change. Who knows? But right at the moment, what you seeing is a guy is doing exactly what he is designed to do. So how can we be upset about the situation that's going on right now in its current state? And we gotta take part responsibility for not being as studious as we should be, not continuing on with the progress, not forming or creating our own political system that will represent us as a people. But instead, you see people going back and forth about who has what lineage and who had it harder than slavery, or what country had slavery the worst. What country is getting reparation and who's not getting reparation. You see this competition, you see this set tripping, you see the game banging on the internet about lineage or whatever, right? But nobody's really focusing on the core issues at hand. There is lack of unity when it comes down to the politics of things. People are not coming together and saying, you know what? Let's form our own political party so we can make sure that we have proper representation. But it seemed like Whitney Young did so much during his time period. Hell, he did more than the politicians themselves ever did. So now let's go to the book. Mm. All right. Ooh. So Militant, Mediator, Whitney M Young Jr. by Dennis C. Dickerson. All right, so you can find this book on archive.org. If you want to read into it and check out the information, you can look at it yourself, look it up. Let's see what information we can find in this book. All right, so all right, so it talks about his life growing up with Jim Crow, right? So it says Whitney M Young Jr. grew up in segregated South, separated in unequal conditions existing in every facet of black life, including education, employment, housing, and public accommodation. All right, racial segregation mandated disrespect for blacks and subjugated both adolescents and adults to incredible indignities. Not only did Young hear nigger, nigger on the way to Simpsonville segregated elementary school, but he watched white townspeople, many of whom needed the patronage of Lincoln Institute, struggle to call his father professor or reverend, but never mister. Segregation was a fact of life, no matter how many times his mother disregarded white signs over water fountains and restroom. Her defiance failed to protect her children from more egregious examples of American apartheid. Now let's go down some more. Let's find out some more information on Mr. Young. All right, it says Whitney Young's later effectiveness as a national black leader owed much to his early professional experience in Minnesota and Nebraska from his work with the National Urban League affiliates in Minneapolis and St. Paul. He learned important lessons in mobilizing interracial support for black advancement. He persuaded influential whites in these communities, especially in business, to cooperate with league efforts to broaden employment opportunity for blacks and to become permanent backers of these local affiliates. So at the same time, Young recognized that black activism represented another effective means to break down racial barriers. Both as a participant and as a behind the scenes supporter, Young reasoned that on appropriate occasion, black protests could achieve some leads objectives faster than the patient, less confrontational efforts of sympathetic whites and cautious blacks. Then goes on to say that nonetheless, when Young arrived in Minneapolis in 1946, he was still uncertain about the vocational objectives. Margaret lived Margaret had lived at the Phyllis Whitley House, a social settlement in a predominantly black section of the city, where her husband arrived. They rented space in a family home. As Young debated whether a medical career or race relations work suited him better. Margaret continued study towards the master's degree in psychology and prepared for the arrival of their first child, Marcia, in the late autumn. In the meantime, Mr. and Mrs. Ashby Gaskin, one of whom studied at Kentucky State with Margaret, helped Young to overcome his indecision. They observed that his interpersonal skills, so ably demonstrated overseas in the army, made social work the better career choice. Besides, they had jobs in the social services and could certainly identify a potential colleague. All right, basically this book goes into a more detail about Whitney Young's life. Okay. What you won't get from Wikipedia, you'll get from the books online. So if you just go on archive.org, right, you'll find plenty of good information. All right. So now his father, let's look at Whitney Young Sr., who his father was. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on, sister. Hold on. Let me go back to it. Let me go back to it. Let me look it up again. Whitney Young. All right, let me post the book up again. I'm sorry about that. I had closed that page out so fast and quick. All right. So the title of the book is called Militant Mediator by Militant Mediator, Whitney M Young Jr. by Dennis Dickerson. Okay. So if you guys can let me kind of zoom it out a little bit so y'all get the title of it. All right, that's the name of the book, Militant Mediator, Whitney M Young Jr., Dennis C. Dickerson. So I hope you got the book, Sister Juju. Did you get the book? That's the title of it. So let's look at who his father was. All right, so let's look up who Whitney Young Sr. was. All right. So Whitney M. Young Sr. was an educator from Kentucky. He was the father of the civil rights leader Whitney M. Young Jr. and the first African American director of the Lincoln Institute, a school for African American students near Simpsonville, Kentucky. All right. Dr. Young was the president of the Kentucky Negro Education Association from 1948 to 1956. When the KNEA, right, which is the Kentucky Negro Education Association, merged with all white Kentucky Education Association, right, he was also part of the United States President Lyndon Johnson's Citizen Committee for the Implementation of Civil Rights Law in 1964, a columnist for the Chicago Daily Defender newspaper, and an advisory board member of the Whitney M Young Jr. Job Corps Center in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, so there's that information. So it's not so much information on his father, but his father pretty much was a civil rights leader himself, and he was an educator as well. So that's where Whitney Young Jr. got his inspiration from his dad. You know, I want to also point out things. Nowadays you don't find this much inspiration that's taking place with our community, but we do see the division between the middle class and the lower class community. And it's almost like the middle class community is all for themselves. The middle class community is focusing on the middle class black people, whereas the lower class black folks have to pretty much pull themselves by the bootstrap. So that's where the division comes in with the black community, which produces the classism. And then you see more division within the black community, which is in the lower class area. So you got the bougie black people, right, that live in the lower class community that don't want to have anything to do with the underclass black people. So that's creating more problem in itself. And I'm all for the idea of unity. I am all for the idea of coming together as a collective, but let's be realistic about this. Let's be 100% honest. It's not going to really happen. It's not going to happen because you have to be able to find like-minded people, people who are really trying to work for a common goal. And if you do, you have to watch certain individuals. You have to ask and you have to be curious of what are their motives. Is their motives focusing on the community in itself, or is the motives about capitalizing off the community? Because what tends to happen when people join these organizations, right, it's more so about the leader or the founder of the organization, rather. They're looking to capitalize off the people that's a part of them, that has contributed to the cause. They're looking to capitalize off of them. And then you're looking at the egos. So it's more so like everything centered around that person rather than what the cause is. So when you're not focusing on the cause and you're focusing on the individual, now you have more issues that's taking place, and there's going to be more division, and it's going to get to a point where people start to lose interest in being part of that particular organization because everything is revolving around the person who's supposed to be the leader. And you got to question the leadership of those individuals that is the so-called leader. So it's almost like you basically wasting your time, and it becomes counterproductive. It becomes very counterproductive because you wondering, well, what's the whole point of this? Because if a person is just going to capitalize off of our struggle, off of our liberation, then why do we continue to fight? Why do we continue to put up programs or institution? Why we continue to try to do something that's supposed to be helpful to the community if one individual is looking to profit off of the organization that's supposed to be contributing to the cause and the issues that's going on in a community? So now you question yourself and you're wondering, am I wasting my valuable time when I could have been doing other things with my life? It's as far as focusing on my personal life. What could you do that would be more constructive? What could you do that could be more constructive for yourself and your family? And I always been one of those people that I was very skeptical about joining organizations or joining any type of group or whatever. I always was curious, what direction is this going to go? And who is going to benefit from this? And what this going to lead to? That's just my thoughts. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, watching the video. I hope you guys enjoy this. And also make sure you check out my previous videos that I have done regarding to Black history. You can look on my channel and you'll see where it says playlist, and you'll see the list of information that I have covered over the years. But make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, and I will keep you guys posted. So tomorrow I'm going to be live with a special guest who I have not done a video with in a while. We're going to be focusing on the subject about what is a foundational African American. So stay tuned. It's going to be around 3 p.m. Eastern time and 2 p.m. Central time. So depending on wherever your time zone is. All right. So if you guys can tune in for that, that'll be great. But anyways, I hope you guys have a productive evening. And till next time, peace and power elevation. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. Peace.